We have lots to discuss in today's video, including some interesting comments on the future of some of the top players of the New York Rangers. Should we see a slow start? One NHL insider feels some big trades are inevitable to start the NHL campaign. Plus, we have lots of other news around the NHL, including the latest on top UFA Jack Roslovic, pending contract extension for Philip Gustafsson in Minnesota. We have a couple of signings with the Ottawa Senators. Maverick Bourque has a new agent, and another NHL veteran has announced his retirement. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. We'll kick things off with the news that longtime veteran NHL defenseman Tyson Barrie has decided to call it a career and has announced his retirement from the NHL. Tyson Barrie's not overly old, but it's kind of run out of opportunity, if you will. Last year wasn't overly great for Barrie. It seems like the last couple of years really overall, this kind of the opportunities were kind of running dry, if you will. He ended up playing 822 games for the total of his career, putting up 508 points. So really pretty productive guy. I mean, he had a lot of productive years during his time with the Colorado Avalanche, where he, of course, got started. Was a 50-point consistent defenseman there for a while. Ended up getting traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs in a pretty significant trade, which ended up being, unfortunately, underwhelming for Toronto. Of course, we saw Nazem Kadri go to the Avalanche, and of course brought in a couple of pieces to the Maple Leafs, including Alex Kerfoot, Tyson Barrie, and of course Connor Timmins as well. But like with that trade, that also seen, I mean, to be honest, Toronto kind of, They might not have gotten the best part of that deal because Barrie's time in Toronto wasn't quite up to snuff. It wasn't. If you just look at the numbers, they're not like the most horrendous you've ever seen. But to me, that was a complete situation of Mike Babcock kind of ruining Tyson Barrie. I really think that the deployment and the coaching of Babcock, I think, could be a large part of that. But it did not work out great. He didn't stay there overly long. Then he went on to play in Edmonton for a few years, had some productive time there. And to be honest, I don't think the Oilers really wanted to, it's not like they set out to trade Barrie, thought they had to get rid of him or anything of that nature, but they had an opportunity to make a big trade with Nashville and get Matthias Ekholm. And Barrie was, of course, part of that trade. And Ekholm has been a huge beast on the back end for Edmonton to try to change up what they had. Obviously, with Barrie, even though he had some productive years, they had Evan Bouchard kind of on the rise, being a really solid offensive guy. Did they need Barrie and Bouchard when they could add a guy like Ekholm who could really solidify the defensive side of things? Made a lot of sense for Edmonton to make that trade. But really, over his time in Nashville, Barrie didn't have the greatest run there, and then ended up getting into Calgary last year. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think he went to camp on a PTO, then signed a one-year deal, and didn't end up playing a lot. And it just feels like his time has kind of run out. But Tyson Barrie has had a pretty successful career. I think we can safely say that he's probably one, if you ask around anybody that's ever played with him, he's got to be one of the most well-liked just teammates around the NHL. I know a lot of people he played with in Colorado, Edmonton, Toronto. This seems like he's kept a lot of lifelong friends from all of his stops around the league. Just an extremely well-liked player. Like I said, kind of a offensive dynamo. But, like I said, his best hockey was definitely in the first stretch of his career with the Avalanche. But overall, 822 games, lots to be proud of. And obviously wish nothing but the best for whatever comes next for Tyson Barrie. We also got word today that youngster with the Dallas Stars, Maverick Bourque, who's now 23, who recently signed a one-year contract for $950K, is changing agencies. Now, I'm not sure if he's totally thrilled with that contract or if it's more of a preparation for the next one. Could be a bit of both. That's really difficult to say. But he was repped previously by Don Deblois, Meridian Hockey. Now he's changed to be going under the much bigger banner of Wasserman and will be repped by Olivier Fortier. So obviously it's a big year for Bourque, as we've said before discussing, especially when he signed. To give the Dallas Stars a deal of a one-year contract under $1 million, I think is pretty good of him, and I think that was probably strategic. I'm not going to say that he's unhappy with the deal. Would he like to have made more? And could he have made more? I think the answer in both those is yes. However, I think it might be strategic, knowing the tight cap space that the Dallas Stars find themselves in, that he very well might end up getting more playing time, being able to squeeze him into the lineup because of the generous cap hit. Not that he could have demanded a whole lot more, but he could have gotten a little bit more for sure. And they signed him quickly as well, which prevented the opportunity for an offer sheet. But obviously it's a big year for Bourque, who's going to be obviously looking for more term and money if he can continue to build on what he's done so far in his young career. And obviously thought he needed better representation to kind of solidify that moving forward. So Bourque will be rep by new agents moving forward. A couple of signings in Ottawa today as well, mostly for their American Hockey League affiliate, but they're both players that, to be honest, I would not be completely shocked if they did have call-ups and have some opportunity to play NHL games. They're bringing back Jan Unique, who signs another one-year deal. Unique did play a few games in Ottawa last year. He was a player that battled for the fourth-line center spot at a training camp, ended up not getting the role. Adam Gaudette secured that, but Unique's a player that plays hard, gets some offensive instincts, and certainly can play. So, he did have some good runs with Belleville, but also had some injuries last year, which kind of derailed part of his year as well. But he gets a 1-year, 2-way contract, $775 at the NHL, and $285,000 at the American Hockey League, which is a bit of an increase on his compensation for that level. They've also brought in another right shot defenseman, Cam Crotty. The 26-year-old was a Group 6 unrestricted free agent, gets a 2-year contract, a 2-way deal with the Senators. Now, he is an Ottawa local product, so that is home for him, so I'm sure he's quite thrilled and happy to be a part of his hometown organization. Crotty is a player that was the captain for the Iowa Wild last year in the American Hockey League, so he was previously in the Minnesota organization. He actually was also a college teammate with Brady Tkachuk for the year that Brady played at Boston University. But Crotty's a 26-year-old, big right shot D, not going to give you a lot of offense. He's more of a defensive style defenseman, stay-at-home kind of guy, and you can never have too many right-handed D, which obviously Ottawa's kind of loaded up on. They also have a guy like Max Gannett, who's also a right shot defenseman, who normally would be ahead of him in the depth chart, but I kind of wonder about Gannett's future now. And I also wonder, because he's not signed yet either, so I wonder what that means for him. They have a lot more right-handed D than they do left-handed D for the minor leagues, so I wonder if we could see some more movement within their prospect system or their depth system. But obviously being 26, he does have, I think he played 1 or 2 games with Minnesota. He's got a little bit of NHL experience, but with his size and everything that he brings, and obviously has a lot of, like I said, college and AHL experience. So he is somebody who, you'd probably have to see multiple right-handed defensemen get hurt, but it wouldn't be shocking if at some point he does get some games in. Plus, it's a 2-year deal, so we'll have to see. Obviously, he has an opportunity to kind of grow, and he could be a little bit of a late bloomer who, may not be a regular NHLer, but could be somebody who could fill in on your third pair if the situation called for it. A couple other things to take a look at here as well. There's still a number of what you'd refer to as some pretty high-profile, unsigned, restricted free agents that we're monitoring. Don't have a lot of updates. We talked a lot about Mason McTavish. I know the latest intel there with McTavish. I know Elliot Friedman was saying how essentially that there does seem to be difference of opinion on what both sides view in a long-term deal, but we do know that Verbeek does view McTavish as being a vital core member moving forward. So the expectation is they will figure something out. But ultimately, I don't think the Marco Rossi signing either is really going to impact McTavish. Very different type of player. So we'll see where things go. But we know Verbeek's not afraid to grind on these deals and drag it out. So we'll see. But Luke Hughes is another one in New Jersey, still without a contract. Not a lot of chatter around Luke Hughes there either. So we don't know. Doesn't appear to be much progress there, but just because doesn't necessarily mean there hasn't been. We just haven't really heard much around it. Connor Zary in Calgary, again, both team and player happy to continue the relationship, just sorting through the contract process. Again, as I think we get closer to training camp here next couple of weeks, we should see a few of these get resolved. deadlines do spawn results in that sense. You got Luke Evangelista with Nashville, same thing. Alexander Holtz in Vegas, and Wyatt Kaiser in Chicago, all still trying to secure their next contract to be able to move forward. So a bunch of names for us to continue monitoring here. When it comes to the UFA side of things, Jack Roslovic continues to be the top unsigned UFA on the market right now. The latest article I've seen on him, it appears as though there's still, like I said, a possibility of him returning to the Hurricanes. And the main team outside of that we've heard about, which I believe it was Frank Cervalli yesterday made mention that the Toronto Maple Leafs are still very much interested. Now, I'm not sure what level of interest. I think their interest is fairly high, but the problem with the Leafs, which has really been the case all offseason, which I'm surprised we haven't seen something by now, but they need to move money out. They've got 2 or 3 players in the forward group especially that they want to move and do some contract dumps here, but they have not been able to. So you've heard David Camp, you've heard Calle Jarnkrok, to some degree Nick Robertson, and they're all still with the team. So, once the Leafs can make some moves here, like if they can do that and Roslovic's still available, then he could end up there. But we'll see. We're still waiting on Toronto to make those trades to clear some money to do some other stuff, because I don't think they're completely happy with the roster the way it is. I know when it comes to another player who's eligible for an extension, Minnesota Wild goalie Philip Gustafsson will be another name to watch. I don't think we're going to see a deal super quick on that front. At this point, they got Rossi signed. Their now attention turns to Kaprizov. No offense to Gustafsson, but Kaprizov will certainly be the top priority probably until it is completed. And as we've heard, there's likely not going to be much more progress in that sense until Kaprizov returns in person to Minnesota so they can have some in-person discussions. I know there's some belief that they need to sort a few things out that way, make sure nothing's lost in translation. The owner has been on record saying that they're quite happy to make him the highest paid winger in the game. So I don't think there's going to be an issue as far as offering him enough money to make him the highest paid winger in the game. The next question will be the term. There's a lot of belief he may want a shorter term, kind of like what we're hearing about Connor McDavid in Edmonton, just to be able to continue putting pressure on the team to make sure that they're as competitive as possible and have the best chance to win the Stanley Cup. So we'll see on that front. But yeah, Kaprizov is definitely a high priority. But of course, Gustafsson recently made some comments speaking to the media during their European media tour. He had confirmed that there has not been any contract extensions as of yet, but that he's enjoyed his time in Minnesota. His family likes it there. He likes it there. And that when the Wild and Bill Guerin are ready to talk, that they can talk between him and his representatives. Otherwise, he said he's got 1 year left, and he's just going to go out and try to play and win hockey games, which is what he'd expect. But all indications are Gustafsson is very interested to have those discussions and to see if they can work out a deal to keep him in Minnesota longer. I think it's pretty clear cut that at this point he'd be the undisputed number 1 goalie for the foreseeable future should he ink an extension, and he's been pretty good for them so far. His first year was really good. Second year was a little bit of a step back, but then been better since again. So we know Fleury's retired. Jesper Wallstedt's on the way up. I don't know really what they can expect from him this year. He's a little bit unproven at this point, so they may need Gustafsson to play a lot, and that obviously could go in his benefit to be able to drive up his price. Gustafsson, though, on the other hand, like I said, been a good goalie. We'll see, but he's definitely eager to have those discussions when the Wild are good and ready. Dave Pagnotta had some interesting comments on the New York Rangers, which is what we're going to talk about today as far as potential trade talk. So he was doing a radio hit, TSN Montreal, and one of the teams they got talked about was the New York Rangers. And basically, he says if the Rangers have a slow start to the season, that he feels just about everything is going to be on the table. Now, we know last year, I think it's fair to say that it was a bit of a disaster for the Rangers. A couple of years prior to that, they were a pretty good, strong team, had some good playoff success. They wanted to build upon that. And last year, everything just kind of went right in the crapper. I mean, all of a sudden, they ended up moving on from Peter Laviolette, the head coach. We saw some changes to the roster, but, obviously some veterans like Chris Kreider no longer there. But at this point, it's basically what they've done is not enough to fix things, and they don't have a good start to the year. If they have a underwhelming start that he says everything will be on the table and they're going to have to cut deeper into that roster to make further change. Now, if the Rangers have a good start, I do think there's a pretty good chance we could see sometime during the season a contract extension ironed out for Artemi Panarin. At least it's believed that, depending on how things go, that there's mutual interest on an extension. He's been one of the better UFA signings for sure in the last, recent history here. So there's no reason to be totally not interested in bringing him back. So obviously, but his future, I think, will be highly dependent on how the team kicks off. He mentions a Panarin trade for the pending unrestricted free agent if they're not having a good start to the year, because clearly his future is a little bit uncertain until they get an extension in place. And I'm not sure where the team is at right now and how it feels about everything, but maybe he wants to see how things start before they make another big commitment to the pending UFA. It also goes on to talk about reanalyzing the relationship with Mika Zibanejad. Of course, we know he's likely going to be a winger on the line with JT Miller this year. I know Mika had expressed a desire to stay there after having some success there late last year after they kind of changed things up a bit. I don't think Mika's going anywhere because he's got full control, but certainly, I guess you could say maybe they apply a little bit more pressure to try to get him to move on, but that would be a tougher pull. The more bold move that Pagnotta talks about would be, or even bold, I'd classify it as bold and risky, would be trading former first overall pick Alexis Lafreniere. Now, of course, we've talked about this at length here. Lafreniere was a slow starter to his career, finally started to take off, got the big contract, and then really took a step back. Now, will he bounce back this year? Will he be able to get back to being what he was before and build on that? That was the goal here, and the hope from this player was that not only could he do what he did 2 years ago, but to take it a step further, to get up to maybe being an 80, 85-point player, something along those lines. Got to create new career highs. How far can he take this? And instead, he took a major step backwards, which made it difficult and challenging to even trade that contract. I think there's teams out there that would do it just for the hope that they could fix him and kind of reignite him onto what he was when he was in junior, and see if they can't find that missing piece that obviously the Rangers haven't been able to bring out in him here just as of yet. So Lafreniere, Panarin, Zibanejad, all items on the table for the New York Rangers, according to Dave Pagnotta, should they have a slow start to the season. I mean, at this rate, they've already made some changes with veterans on the team. They've already made a coaching change. Their decor is going to be a fair bit different. We've seen Keandre Miller go out. Zach Jones is out. They got Gavrikov in. It's a very, I wouldn't say super different team, but they've made enough changes that in theory they should be a better team. And if they can't bounce back with what they've done between the new coach and the new changes, then like I said, I don't think they're going to have a choice. And I agree with Pagnotta that they're going to have no choice but to cut a little deeper into the roster, and then you're looking at some core pieces. And I would say the future of Panarin and Lafreniere would probably be the prime guys to take a look at. You can't move Zibanejad without his permission, so that's probably not happening. He's already made it clear he's not going anywhere. Adam Fox is another name. Probably not moving Fox. A lot of money, a lot of term left on that contract. And then you're looking at Miller, Trocheck, and really they haven't been there that long. I don't know if they're as much a part of the issue. So those are the guys that you're going to have to consider. It's just that simple. So let me know your thoughts on the Rangers. If they have a slow start, do you agree with Pagnotta's assessment here that you're going to see possibly guys like Panarin or Lafreniere be moved should things not get off to a great start in the Big Apple? Let me know your thoughts as well as on the top unsigned restricted free agents. When are they going to come to terms? Give me your best predictions for contracts on them, as well as all the other news discussed here in today's video. Thanks very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.